Something unexpected is happening in Rome, and it's happening fast. For a long time, many faithful Catholics have been hoping for real change inside the Church. Now, with the arrival of Pope Leo, that change may finally be beginning. Without public announcements or dramatic headlines, something important has quietly taken place. One of the most controversial figures in recent Church history, once seen as beyond reach, is being removed from sight. And it's being done swiftly, firmly, and without hesitation. Just recently, without any warning or official explanation, all of Father Marco Rupnik's artworks disappeared from the Vatican's website. His mosaics, which used to be featured prominently during major liturgical celebrations, are gone. In their place are traditional icons' images that reflect the Church's ancient roots. It's as if the past few years have been quietly brushed away, replaced by something older, something more familiar. While it may seem like a simple change in artwork, the message behind it is much deeper. This move sends a clear and powerful signal. Things are shifting at the highest levels of the Church. And at the heart of this shift is Pope Leo. For years, despite serious accusations against Rupnik, his art continued to be displayed in churches, sanctuaries, and even official Vatican publications. Many believers raised concerns. Victims came forward. Dozens of religious sisters shared their painful stories, offering detailed testimonies. But those voices were often silenced or ignored. Now, all of that seems to be changing. Only a few days after Pope Leo took office, a bold and quiet decision was made. Rupnik's name and his works have vanished from the Vatican's public view. No press release, no statement, just action. All images and visual materials connected to Father Rupnik have now been removed not only from the Italian version of the Vatican News website, but also from the Spanish version. This wasn't a slow or partial process, it was a complete and coordinated cleanup. Everything was taken down at once. It's clear that this decision wasn't made lightly. It was swift, precise, and purposeful. A decision like this, especially in such a sensitive and controversial case, likely could not have happened without the Pope's direct approval. And this is where Pope Leo stands apart. He doesn't rely on loud speeches or dramatic headlines. He simply acts. In the past, cases like these were often ignored or covered up. But now, a clear line is being drawn. The Vatican is no longer making room for art created by someone accused of harming religious women both spiritually and physically. There is no longer any tolerance for separating the so-called talent from the man behind it. The message is simple. When serious wrongdoing is tied to someone's work, that work no longer belongs in the public life of the Church. Pope Leo didn't explain it with long statements or press conferences. He didn't try to soften the truth or offer excuses. He simply acted. And in a place like Rome, where things often move slowly and cautiously, this kind of direct action is nothing short of revolutionary. But Rupnik is not the only name being addressed. Another case has now come into the spotlight, this time involving Gustavo Zanchetta, a former bishop from Argentina. For years, Zanchetta was deeply connected to a network of influence, silence, and protection that marked the previous era. Despite serious accusations, including abuse of seminarians, he held on to power and privilege. Not anymore. Zanchetta had been sentenced in Argentina to 4 years in prison for abuse. Yet, instead of serving his sentence behind bars, he was granted house arrest. Even that, however, was not strictly enforced. He traveled freely and eventually made his way back to Rome, claiming he needed medical treatment. He remained there for much longer than allowed. For months, no one could say for sure where he was. It was a familiar pattern: silence, protection, and carefully planned absences. But everything changed shortly after Pope Leo took office. Just days after the new pontiff was elected, Zanchetta was suddenly no longer in Rome. He had quietly returned to Argentina, now living in a convent. The timing was striking. It's difficult to believe this was a simple coincidence. Everything points to the conclusion that Zanchetta didn't leave voluntarily, he was told to leave. And that, in itself, speaks volumes. This quiet but firm action is another clear sign of the new direction under Pope Leo. No more hidden favors. No more shielding bishops from accountability. Zanchetta's case, in many ways, represents the deeper issues that have troubled the Church for years. A bishop accused and later convicted of serious misconduct, yet still welcomed back into a place of power, as if the complaints against him were just minor inconveniences. This is the mindset of clerical privilege, a system where status often mattered more than justice. But Pope Leo appears determined to break that system apart, starting from the top. Where there was once silence and protection, there is now removal and exile. This is not just about one man. It's about a shift in how the Church handles abuse, responsibility, and leadership. Instead of more hospitality, we now see removal. Just as the controversial art of Father Rupnik was quietly taken down, Bishop Zanchetta has also been quietly sent away. These may seem like small gestures, but they speak loudly. In these quiet but firm actions, we begin to see the courage of a new papacy, one that appears focused on rebuilding the trust that has been lost for so long. For years, a harmful system had taken root within the Church. It was a system built around protection, favoritism, and silence. Certain powerful men, even when surrounded by scandal or serious accusations, were shielded rather than confronted. Some were moved from one place to another. Others were given new roles instead of being held accountable. Because of friendships, connections, or political convenience, these individuals remained untouchable. They were treated almost like saints, even when their actions deeply hurt others. But now, things are changing. With the election of Pope Leo, a clear turning point has arrived. And the difference was visible almost immediately. Those who once enjoyed the protection of the Vatican are no longer safe behind its walls. They are being removed, not just from positions of power, but from the Church's public life altogether. They are no longer present in the offices, the palaces, or the communications of the Holy See. Father Marco Rupnik and Bishop Gustavo Zanchetta are not just isolated cases. They represent a deeper problem, a broken structure that allowed abuse and injustice to continue behind closed doors. Both men had become symbols of a system where personal connections were more important than truth or justice. But under Pope Leo's leadership, that system is being dismantled. These removals weren't done with public trials or dramatic announcements. They happened quietly, but with complete clarity. These were not temporary suspensions or careful delays. They were final. They were fast, and they were unmistakable. The message is simple. The Church will no longer make room for those who have betrayed the trust of the faithful, no matter how powerful or well-connected they may be. The message has now reached every corner of the Church, especially among the bishops and leaders. It is loud, it is clear, and it cannot be ignored. Those who have used their position, their clerical garments, their titles, their influence, not to serve, but to harm, will no longer find protection within the walls of the Vatican. And not only them. Those who stayed silent, who looked the other way, or who protected wrongdoing out of convenience or personal gain, they too will no longer be shielded. The days of hiding behind holy offices are coming to an end. We are witnessing the beginning of a new chapter in the life of the Church. A new season, one that feels long overdue. It is a season where the privileged few who were once protected are being removed. And in their place, something far more important is returning. The gospel itself. The message of Christ is being placed back at the center of everything. And with it comes a renewed sense of honesty, humility, and hope. This path that Pope Leo seems to be taking is not one of revenge or punishment. It is not about targeting individuals, it is about restoring the soul of the Church. This is an evangelical path, a path rooted in truth, justice, and healing. It is about bringing the Church back to its true mission, to serve, to love, and to stand with the vulnerable. It is not an easy road. It goes against the mindset of the world, a world that often rewards image over integrity and power over principle. And this is exactly what Pope Leo is doing. He is not acting out of anger, but out of a deep desire to heal. Like a careful surgeon, he is removing what is unhealthy, cutting away the spiritual disease that has weakened the Church for too long. He is showing that true healing sometimes requires bold action, even when it is difficult. By confronting the problems directly, Pope Leo is making it clear that the beauty of our faith cannot be defended with silence or compromise. It must be protected with the strength of truth. Only through honesty, justice, and courage can the church shine again, not as a symbol of power, but as a beacon of hope. This is not just a moment of reform. It is the beginning of something deeper, a return to the heart of the gospel, where truth is not feared, but embraced. And in doing so, Pope Leo is reminding the world that the Church's mission is not to preserve appearances, but to be a living witness to the love and light of Christ. What we are seeing under Pope Leo is not just a change in leadership, it's a change in direction. A shift from silence to honesty, from privilege to responsibility, from fear to courage. It is the kind of change that many faithful have prayed for, even when it seemed impossible. And now, it's beginning to take shape, one decision at a time. Each quiet removal, each act of accountability, sends a signal, not just to the Vatican, but to Catholics around the world. It tells the wounded that their pain has not been forgotten. It tells the faithful that holiness and justice are not in conflict. And it tells the Church's critics that change, real change, is not only possible, it's already underway. Of course, the path forward won't be easy. There are still many challenges ahead. There will be resistance. There will be pressure to slow down or compromise. But moments like these remind us why the Church exists in the first place. Not to protect power, but to protect souls. Not to preserve reputations, but to proclaim the truth. And as this new season unfolds, many will be watching, not just with skepticism, but with hope. Hope that what has begun in silence will grow into something lasting. That this is not just a cleanup of the past, but the start of a new future. A future rooted not in politics or favoritism, but in faith, in humility, and in truth. As we reflect on what is unfolding under Pope Leo, we begin to understand that this is not merely a moment of internal reform, it is something much greater. It is the rebirth of a deeper identity. An identity that has, at times, been overshadowed by human error, wounded by silence, and clouded by scandal. But now, piece by piece, truth is rising. Not as a weapon, but as a light. The quiet removals we've witnessed may seem like administrative actions, but they carry deep spiritual weight. Each one is a step toward healing. Each one says to the faithful, "We hear you, we see you, and we are finally acting." The Church cannot truly be the body of Christ while protecting those who harm it from within. And Pope Leo seems to know this. He is not chasing headlines. He is not making grand declarations. He is simply doing what must be done. And in today's world, that alone is a powerful statement. It's easy to become cynical. For many Catholics, laypeople, religious, even clergy, the wounds are still fresh. Stories of abuse, of cover-ups, of betrayals by those entrusted with spiritual care have left deep scars. Some have walked away, not out of hatred for the faith, but out of sorrow. Others remain, praying quietly, waiting for something to change. Waiting for someone to say, "Enough." Waiting for someone to choose truth over comfort. Pope Leo, in his silence and swiftness, seems to be offering that long-awaited response. But healing is not just about removing what is broken. It's also about restoring what is good. The Church has never been defined by the failures of a few, but by the quiet holiness of the many. It is the hidden sacrifices of the poor, the daily prayers of grandmothers, the faithful priests in remote parishes, the nuns who spend their lives in service and intercession. It is the gospel lived in homes, in hospitals, in classrooms, in prisons. And that's what Pope Leo appears to be pointing us back to, the real heart of the Church. This moment in Church history invites all of us to remember why we believe. Not because of men in robes or titles, but because of Christ. Because of his mercy, his justice, his love that never forgets the weak, that never abandons the lost. The Church belongs to him, not to any one pope, bishop, or institution. And when its leaders reflect that truth through action, not just words, it renews faith in something eternal. It also invites us to do more than watch from the sidelines. Renewal is not just the responsibility of the Pope or a handful of cardinals. It belongs to all of us. Each Catholic, each believer, has a part to play. In our homes, in our conversations, in how we respond to injustice, not with rage, but with truth and love. This moment reminds us that holiness is possible. and that it begins with personal conversion, with prayer, with repentance, with courage. Yes, the church has been bruised. But bruises are signs of battles fought, not signs of defeat. The story of the church has always included struggle, from persecution in the early centuries to corruption in the Middle Ages to the crises of our own time. And yet, it still stands. Not because of its strength, but because of God's faithfulness. Because no matter how dark the valley, the shepherd remains. Pope Leo, in removing those who should not have remained, is not simply cleaning up the past. He is creating space for something better. For the church to be what it was meant to be, a place of refuge for the broken, not a refuge for the powerful. A place where victims are believed, where justice is not delayed, where the sacraments are treated with reverence, where leadership means service, not status. This new season may be uncomfortable for many. There are those who benefited from the old ways, who preferred silence, who hid behind red robes and long titles. But that time is ending. Not with loud rebellion, but with quiet reform. Not with slogans, but with decisions. And that is often how God works, not through the storms, but through the still small voice. Through people who choose what is right when no one is watching. Through one act of integrity at a time. What Pope Leo is doing now may not make daily headlines. But for those who have suffered in silence, it means everything. For the faithful who felt abandoned, it is a sign of hope. For a world watching the church with skepticism, it is a challenge. Watch what happens when truth is no longer buried. And for us, those who care, who pray, who hope, it is a call to keep going. To not give up on the church, even when it stumbles. To speak truth, but also to live it. To forgive when it's time, but never forget the lessons that pain has taught us. To be, in our own small way, part of the renewal that is already unfolding. Because the church is not only a building in Rome. It is you. It is me. It is every believer who tries, fails, repents, and begins again. And it is in moments like this, when the stones are being cleared away, that we are invited to help rebuild. Let us not miss this moment. Let us not just scroll past it. Let us take it to heart. Pray for the Pope. Pray for the Church. Pray for justice and mercy to walk hand in hand. And above all, let us ask God to give us the same courage we now see in Pope Leo, the courage to act, the courage to believe, and the courage to hope again.